I've had my Galaxy S24 Ultra now for about a week and it's been an interesting experience, so let's talk about it. I've done a ton of unboxings, first looks, and new features on Instagram and TikTok, so make sure you follow me there if you want constant updates. If you want to pre-order this phone, consider using the links in the description to get the best deals and to support the channel. It's highly appreciated. If you look at last year's phone and this year's phone, it doesn't really look that much different, so what's actually different about it? Well, first of all, it has pretty much a flat display, so the S Pen that comes built in can run closer to the edge of this phone. It tucks in nicely into the frame so it isn't sharp or harsh, and it almost feels curved, so it gives you the best of both worlds on this display. It's absolutely top-notch. It has more symmetrical bezels, which I know some people will definitely appreciate, and it has a less reflective display, which I noticed immediately, and the brightness is also out of this world, so during the daytime you'll notice that bump up for sure. And of course it has a high resolution 120Hz display as you would expect, so this is one of the nicest or the nicest display I've seen on a smartphone. It just feels so premium and weighty in the hand with the titanium frame. There are some minor changes to the design like speaker and microphone placement, but this is still a very familiar phone. The S Pen is a little smaller, I believe, and it's a little bit more responsive, but I've never complained about the S Pen's responsiveness, so it's as great as usual. The camera modules are definitely a little more pronounced, but side by side the design is a familiar one, but I'm okay with that. But if we're going to give Apple that criticism of the iPhone looking the same for years, this is kind of the same story here. So the two main things I say change the experience for the better or worse is number one, the software and the cameras, and they are both basically related. So let's jump right into what you want to know about the cameras and the AI editing features. Okay, so let's start with the camera setup. This is almost the same camera setup as last year's Galaxy S23 Ultra. This is the same 200 megapixel main sensor, the same ultra wide sensor, and the same 3x telephoto. But the big difference is that Samsung dialed back on their optical zoom, and instead of the 10x optical lens they had on the S23 Ultra, now we have a new 5x telephoto lens, and there are some advantages and disadvantages to this. The advantage is that the focal lengths are now more practical for everyday photography. I love having the 3x portrait mode because I still think this is the best focal length for portraits. So now having access to that 5x lens, especially in portrait mode, gives me that option to shoot from further away and get some amazing results. And I praise this on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and I'm gonna do the same here. You still have the option for 10x, and you can actually add that right in the zoom toggle via the camera assistant. I will show you some zoom samples later so you can see the quality difference. But I want to say I like the way that One UI 6.1 cleaned up the camera interface. It is so much easier to choose between the resolutions. I think overall this is a much cleaner layout. The shutter seems to be slightly improved on this as well, even without going into the camera assistant and tweaking it. And in Pro mode, there's a new 24 megapixel camera mode, which takes a 12 megapixel and a 50 megapixel shot at the same time and combines them for more detail. So I'll definitely be going more in depth with this on the Galaxy S23 Ultra versus S24 Ultra camera comparison. But one of the first things I noticed when I started using this phone is how smooth the zoom transitions are. And you can even see this cool blur or open window effect, I call it. You can see it most from going from 3x to 5x and 5x to 10x. It is really nice, so I thought I would point that out. The video did get some upgrades, so you can see that on my iPhone 15 Pro Max versus S24 Ultra video camera comparison, and I'll leave that link down below. But the notable one for me is the 4K 120 frames per second mode. The thing is that you do have to go into Pro mode to get this feature, so I hope it makes it over to the regular camera app. But man, does this give you some high quality slow motion capabilities. So if you use your phone to make content, this is amazing. And what's great is it works with the ultra wide angle and the main sensor, so you have choices. So this was a feature that I wasn't expecting. But if you don't want to mess around with changing all of the settings to get slow motion, that's okay. The new instant slow-mo feature will make any video you take slow motion just by holding down on the screen, and this is incredible because this uses AI to generate frames in between to make this happen, and it works really, really well. The only time it does make a difference what frame rate that you actually shoot at is when you go in to edit the video and you want to slow it down. The higher frame rate that you shoot at will give you extra options, and you can even slow it down in just certain parts of the video. So some great options for slow motion on the S24 Ultra. Now, finally, you can change the lenses on 4K 60 frames per second video while recording. I know this shouldn't even be a new feature, but prior to this phone, no Samsung phone could do this, so 4K 60 fans will be happy. Portrait mode video also gets an upgrade this year by using the ultra wide and main cameras at the same time to get more accurate depth information. This is exclusive to the Galaxy S24 Ultra, but to be honest, I don't think that they optimized this quite yet because I don't see any improvements yet, so I'm betting that they might tune this in a future software software update. 8K video is here as usual, but guess what? Now you have a 5x option in 8K video, which makes this mode more interesting. So I may have to do a cinematic 8K video test on this phone. So if you want that, leave a comment down below and I'll see if I can make that happen. I know Instagram camera quality has always been an issue, but now Samsung native camera features like Super HDR is built into Instagram, so pictures and video from the app are much better. I posted some examples of photos on Instagram so you can see the difference, and from the response, it looks to be a big improvement. But when it comes down to video quality after uploading, it looks like compression is still at the hands of Meta and Android as an OS as a whole. So I'm finding that the iPhone videos still look crisper after it's uploaded. So I hope that Meta and Google figure this out because Samsung is trying. AI is the buzzword in 2024, but Samsung AI is something they are pushing hard with this phone, and overall it's pretty cool. My only concern is that Galaxy AI is only free for a couple of years, and I have my doubts that these AI features will stay exclusive to Samsung, but nevertheless, the features are pretty neat. The easiest way to get started is just swipe up from your gallery and AI suggestions will be recommended, and that's the easiest way to get into some of these features. But if you go into the editor, you will see the magic button here, and that's where you can do some great stuff. The two main ones besides the super slow-mo feature that I showed you earlier are erasing multiple objects and the generative fill features that we saw demoed at Snapdragon Summit in Hawaii. So let's say that you want to remove more than one object, you definitely can, and it will fill in that part, and it seems to work better than other versions that we've seen in the past. But let's say that you want to remove a person or an object or even resize that object, you can do, which is very wild. I think Google showed this off in their Pixel 8 Pro launch as well. But what's different here is that if you need to reframe this, you can, and all those missing parts of the picture now can be AI generated, and you can even do this multiple times with some really solid results. Of course, sometimes it does mess up and you might need to circle multiple parts of the image to get it right, and it does struggle with shadows and things like that. But for version 1, this is really solid, so let me know if you would use this. What's amazing is this expands beyond the camera. If you've seen the interpreter feature where you can live translate while you're on a call, that's incredible. And even in person with the interpreter app, it will do this in real time. So these are cutting edge features that I cannot wait to try on my next international trip this summer. So let's get to what you really want to know about, and that is the camera quality. So let's start with how it compares to the Galaxy S23 Ultra. I know a lot of you have been asking for this, and what's great is I am seeing an improvement. The core main lens, the 3x telephoto and ultra wide are the same lenses, but there are processing improvements that you can see here on the flower, way better exposure compensation and highlight controls and color reproduction. You can even see it here on the skin on the 3x portrait shot. The Galaxy S24 Ultra does a great job of controlling the highlights on the skin for better results, but what you will gain is this 5x lens for incredible portrait shots. The bokeh isn't quite perfect, but it looks fantastic. It's just having that extra option in your pocket makes the Galaxy S24 even a more versatile shooter, and this puts it in line with the iPhone 15 Pro Max, which changed over to a 5x telephoto last year. But the difference is that you still have that 3x telephoto option on the Galaxy S24 Ultra where you don't have that on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. So that's what makes the Galaxy S24 Ultra so much more flexible. I am seeing a bump up in clarity on certain shots, and the increase in contrast is definitely noticeable. So I think it has a better look overall, but I would set your expectations straight if you think there will be a huge increase in camera quality during the day, because if you look, a lot of these look pretty similar. But to my surprise, I thought that the zoom quality would be degraded heavily because of the loss of the 10x optical, but with the new processing in tow, look at the detail here on 10x. And while undoubtedly there is more sharpening to compensate, the detail is more present, so that is a surprise to me. Here is the shot at 30x zoom, so the same as the 10x here with the extra sharpening, but it does look really close. But at 100x, you can finally start seeing the processing starting to fall apart while compensating. But dang, this is good news for S24 Ultra potential buyers. One more zoom test and you can clearly see here the color improvements on the main lens for the S24 Ultra, warmer but more accurate. Here is the 2x crop that is present on both phones, and then 3x next. You can really see the color differences here as well. It's very drastic under these conditions. And then here is the 10x. And again, surprising, does the S24 Ultra look sharper to you? It's crazy, right? So if you're worried about the zoom, I really wouldn't be. Yes, there are conditions where the optical 10x zoom lens will be better. For instance, I did notice here on the night that the 10x wasn't as good, so it will go back and forth. And here is the 100x, so you have to consider if nighttime zoom is important to you or not. I will be diving more into this on my full camera comparison, but I wanted to show you what you needed to know here. I am seeing more detail even in low light. Take a look at the ground here. That is a significant difference. On some shots, I am noticing a more natural night replication, but sometimes it does the opposite with a brighter image. But again, look at the details here on the ground. You can see the cracks here so clearly on the S24 Ultra, but as usual, there will be times where the Galaxy S23 Ultra will do better, like here. The popcorn is blown out on the S24 Ultra, but perfect on the S23 Ultra. But there is more shadow detail here on the S24 Ultra, so tuning is definitely needed. Here are a few more examples where the S23 Ultra did better, so I can validate some of those claims from others. But there are so many examples where the S24 Ultra is better even with nighttime performance. Some results not as much, but in pictures like this one, Samsung is going in the right direction. So I think with a couple of software updates, I think the new phone will be more consistent. But again, you have to go off of what this phone is doing now versus what is promised in the future. So I want to be fair and set your expectations straight. So if you want that 5x zoom with that incredible portrait mode and want the new faster processing on the S24 Ultra, then go for it. When it came down to nighttime video, I did see some color improvements with the red replication. It's better, and I'm loving the extra contrast to make the video pop more. But when it came to walking nighttime video in really dark conditions like this, I did see some color improvements for sure, but I want to see more improvements when it comes to the stabilization at night while walking and panning. You can see that these problems carry over from the S23 Ultra, and I believe Samsung is already aware of this problem and plans to address this in the next update, but right now, it can definitely use some help. On a side note, I am testing the S24 Plus as well for a camera comparison, and this is a great alternative if you don't need all of the Ultra features, and you get to save $300 in the process. I found the images to be very comparable, especially during the daytime, but that's no surprise really. Since the S24 Plus has a smaller sensor, you might think that some of these closer shots look better, and if you did, you'd be correct. You get less bokeh or background separation, but you get less of that fringing that you get from larger sensors, so keep that in mind when choosing between the two. The thing that you'll be missing out on is that incredible 5x portrait mode. It really does look great. Besides some color differences, I was really impressed with the S24 Plus, so I think most people will be very happy with this. The only time that I saw it falling behind is in the night photos. You can see this yellow tint creeping in here, and the depth of field isn't as strong on the background, but I even found some of the portrait mode shots to be sharper under the S24 Plus because it seems to have more of the older processing with more sharpening. But overall, I found the S24 Ultra's cameras to be better, especially with the front-facing camera. And of course, if you want that extra zoom range with better zoom performance, you will need to go with the Ultra. But if you don't need that, you can easily go with the S24 Plus and not have any regrets, especially if you live in the US with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 processor. I know a lot of you are wondering how the Galaxy S24 Ultra stacks up against the iPhone 15 Pro Max. I did take about 50 to 60 photos yesterday, but I need a little bit more time to evaluate. On initial thoughts though, the 5x portrait mode is outperforming the iPhone 15 Pro Max with better colors and edge detection. Some shots are definitely closer than others, but some of them like this one, it's a drastic difference when it comes to overall processing. I am still seeing some more shadow detail and just more details in general because of the 24 megapixel output on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Now I know there is that mode in Expert RAW and I will be testing that in the full comparison, but while I was testing this, look at this weird quirk I found. When you switch between the resolutions on the S24 Ultra, the 50 megapixel is the brightest. So this just makes things a little bit more complicated. So the full comparison is coming soon, so make sure you subscribe. I know you want more, but I want to make sure that I give you the most thorough comparison that I can give you. So it's coming soon, I promise. So let's end it with battery life. Pretty much every day I've been getting 6 to 7 hours of screen on time with about 20 plus or more percent left at the end of the day. So the battery on this phone is legit. Even with heavier camera use, I was expecting it to die faster. So battery life on the first week is a major win. So I'll keep you updated in my long-term review after a month. But if you want to see how the battery life compares to the iPhone, check out this amazing TikTok. I'll leave this link down below. I think you'll get a great idea of how good the battery life is on this phone. So what do you guys think of the Galaxy S24 Ultra? Are you impressed? Are you disappointed? Let me know in the comment section below. I'm hoping to see a large first wave camera software update to hit and fix these issues that I've seen, but overall this is a solid smartphone. On initial first week impressions, I say if you have a Galaxy S23 Ultra, you can probably skip this upgrade, but anything below that, it might be worth it because of the camera, processor, and AI features alone. So let me know what you think. Hit that thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, subscribe for a lot more coming up, and I'll see you in the next one.